What's up, guys? Jake here with a quick message before we get on to our show. Please make sure that you like this video below, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, and also make sure that you sign up for notifications. With your guys' help, we can ensure that all of the guests get the right attention and audience that they deserve. I thank all of you guys for joining me along this very adventurous journey, and now let's get on to the show. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. You are now joining one of my good friends on the podcast. He was here in episode 3. Looking back, man, that was so long ago. That was actually a Zoom conversation, so I'm fortunate that we get to have him here in person. You're joining Stephen Cohen on the guest list. He is the co-founder of Sunder Energy. This man is crushing it out here in life, and I'm fortunate to have him on here, one of my good friends.
Appreciate to be back, Jake. Happy to be here in person, man. We made it through the COVID time, so excited to see the setup, be here, man, and give your listeners some value.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring you back here. There's one thing throughout my entire podcast journey, right, I've probably appeared on about 15 different podcasts. And of course, the question comes up, who is your favorite person that you've ever interviewed on the podcast? And I always tell them, without a doubt, my biased opinion is Stephen Cohen.
No.
And do you know why?
I don't. Tell me.
It's because you're the only person that's ever proved me wrong. Like when we go back to our Planet Hollywood days, you kind of had everyone stacked against you, right? Sure. We always used to call you out for being in a pyramid scheme.
For sure.
And then,
good old days.
Yeah, you faced reality. You dropped out and pursued the path that you thought was best, and now you've proved all of us wrong, and you're here mighty successfully. So, before we do get into that, if you guys want to go way back to episode 3, you can hear Stephen's incredible journey. But just give us the Cliff's Notes version of your story.
For sure, man. So 27 years old out here in Vegas. Obviously, I've known you for quite a bit of time, Jake, and, appreciate what you said about me, about the growth. We can say the same about you as well. Just the amount of growth and just commitment to what you believe in is awesome. So right back at you, buddy. But yeah, guys, 27 years old, Stephen Cohen out here. So I've been doing entrepreneurship for about 8 years. Started online marketing for the first 3 years. Didn't make any money, but learned a ton about entrepreneurship, sales, leadership, public speaking. Then about 5 years ago, I pivoted to the solar industry and started really seeing some success. Started out here in Vegas, been cool, been able to travel, lived in San Diego, Colorado, San Jose, been able to build teams from just myself and one of my good buddies to now about a 250 to 300 man company across the country, from Nevada to New York, and been able to help a bunch of young entrepreneurs, young hungry people realize some of their goals and dreams. And it's been a hell of a journey. And if there's one thing I learned, it's, hey, go out there and get it. Even if the deck's stacked against you, and you from the outside looking in, you don't really have the results on a monetary level. As long as you know inside where you want to be and where you're going, and you hold on to that, everything will work itself out.
I think you've been You've excelled at the recruiting game, because a lot of your posts that I see, you have a lot of these hungry, seems like mostly younger individuals, but they go out and they rake that kind of money. So
for sure,
what kind of skills does it take to possess in order to be an effective recruiter on this scale?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it comes down to really realizing what recruiting is. You brought up network marketing when I first got started, right? A lot of people think it's a pyramid scheme, and, there's definitely some controversy. There's some things I like about it, but also some things I don't like about it. But one of the skill sets they teach you is the ability to recruit, the ability to enroll. And for me, the biggest realization that I had is I really had to understand what recruiting is. Most people think it's a bad thing, right? Oh, I'm trying to get something out of you. Hey, Jake, come join my company, right? Or come buy my product because I need something from you. When in reality, that's not necessarily true, because if you look at some of the most successful organizations on the planet, we talk about the military, we talk about Ivy League schools, we talk about, colleges, the military, professional sports teams, all these elite organizations. What do? They recruit. Why do they recruit? Because they look for talent. They're looking for talent to expand the organization's vision. And that's essentially what recruiting is to me. It's finding like-minded individuals that believe in a common cause, that believe in a common vision, and, giving that out there and hopefully bringing those people in to fulfill the mission together. So to be a good recruiter, you need to have conviction. I think that's in anything, right? If you don't believe on what you're talking about, you're not going to convince other people to believe what you're talking about. So being rooted in your beliefs, being rooted in what you stand for, whether that's you're a school teacher and you want to recruit your students on why they should follow this curriculum, or you're a sales leader and you should recruit this person to join your organization versus the other. You need to have conviction in what you're talking about. You need to believe in what you're doing more than the person that doesn't believe in why they should join you. And you just got to go out there and execute and share the vision, share the plan. And you do that consistently enough times and you'll find people that believe in what you believe.
And recruiting is interesting from even our own personal background. I was a recruiting chair for
chair, baby.
Yeah, AE Pi fraternity. And I have to say, for the people that are listening, recruiting Jews is tougher than it actually sounds.
It's tough, man.
And then getting them to pay on top of it, it's oh my God, it's a headache.
I never paid.
Do you remember that time where I almost didn't let you out into our most historic Halloween party of all time?
I do remember that. I had to use my sales ability to convince you to let me go, even though you probably shouldn't have, because I was an asshole and didn't pay dues. But I appreciate you letting me in.
But those kind of recruiting skills that we learned in college and sometimes even younger, you're able to take those and apply it to things in reality.
100%.
Gershon, who was president when we were both just wee little freshmen and sophomores in college, he said something at one of our bro retreats where he said that college is just a fictitious creation of what the real world actually is. Like this is just a testing ground. It's an experiment. And I really took that to heart. And once I learned how to recruit Jews, then I moved on and figured out how to build a business
for sure
and recruit different people that I need for whatever different application it is in life. And so recruiting, I think, is a primary skill that we need to learn, even if it's not recruiting 200 people for a solar company.
Yeah. So the thing is, whatever you want to do out of life, right? Whether you want to be a great mother, or you want to be a great engineer, or you want to create a charity, or you want to travel the world, right? Whatever you want to do out of life, whatever your dreams and aspirations are, you're going to need other people to help you along the way, right? The whole saying, oh, I'm a self-made millionaire, or I'm self-made. No, it's not necessarily true. Maybe you can identify like that, but there are for sure people, whether it was your family, whether it was your team, whether your peers, that have supported you on their way, right? No one is completely self-made. So in order to get those right people, you need to be a recruiter. You need to understand how to influence people and show people your vision, or else you're not going to have any support. And at the end of the day, there's a good quote out there is, you can go far, you can go fast alone, but you can go farther together, and you need other people because everyone's skill set's a little bit different, right? Your skill set's different than mine. My skill set's different than one of my partners, right? So the goal isn't to be good at everything. The goal is to find individuals that have maybe some of the strengths that you lack and weaknesses, and cobble them together. And that's how you have these all-star companies, all-star athletes, all-star entrepreneurs. It's because their ability to find other people and get them to join their vision and mission. Today's MLK Day, right? MLK Day, great example. We could say he was a lot of things, obviously a philanthropist, a great leader, a great speaker. But one thing I'd argue is he was an awesome recruiter. On the day, right, he was able to get hundreds of thousands of people to come to this park without social media, without TikTok, without Instagram, to listen to what he has to say, right? That ability to spray that vision and enroll people into what you're talking about, I think is valuable in any facet of life, not just business.
It's interesting. And the way that society's progressing, I think we need to emphasize collaboration. The way of how people view society now, it seems so polarized because of politics. But when you step outside of the political realm, which kind of is just an echo chamber on the social media patterns, you realize that all the successful people in life are all collabing
for sure
with each other. You see all the YouTubers on YouTube are collabing with each other. Podcasters are collabing with each other. These different innovative technology businesses are all collabing with each other. So we need to understand that if you're recruiting somebody, you're not necessarily recruiting them to work for you. You're recruiting them to follow you, to embrace you, to understand what message you both can pitch together in order to get that across.
For sure. I think it goes back to the caveman days, right? Where, us as human beings, we're meant to be in groups. We're meant to, like you said, collaborate with each other. We're social creatures. The easiest way to kill someone's goals, dreams, aspirations, their energy is to cut them off from communication. That's why, this whole COVID thing, that's a whole nother topic, but, I think that's a big issue with this whole quarantine, is it because it cuts out the social aspect of life, which is what people need. We need to be able to bounce ideas and interact with other people. But even back in the caveman days, right? I would depend on you to bring the fire. I would depend on this individual to go, bring the meat, and I would take care of the shelter, right? So we're rooted in our DNA to be creatures of association, creatures of culture and environment. And your ability to cultivate that and do it strategically in the way that's going to allow you to achieve what you want is priceless.
Exactly. And now the situation where you find yourself, you're the caveman who gets to help delegate all of that. You're not necessarily the worker, because you went through that. And through your journey, what has changed in your mindset from being somebody who was out on the front lines, door knocking, to now running your own business? For
sure. A lot has changed for sure, but I think it's important to echo that, overnight success, right? Gary Vee's made a great video on this. I was going through my time hop yesterday or 2 days ago, and I saw a video of me 8 years ago speaking to a group of people on this day, right, on MLK Day. And it was just interesting to me because I'm doing the same thing I was doing 8 years ago, right? Speaking, influencing, spreading my message, right? Recruiting, doing all these things, inspiring, hopefully, different people. Yet my income has jumped 100%, right? 200%, whatever the case is. And what's changed in my mindset is I think I've just become more valuable of an individual, right? Skills pay the bills. I've been able to cultivate certain skill sets. I've been able to go through certain trials and tribulations and, be gritty and commit to a process. And I've become someone that's a lot more valuable than I was when I first started. But you have to go through the grind, right? You have to start at the bottom. Drake started at the bottom. Now we're here. We're definitely not here. We're almost there, right? We're getting there. There's no here, right? It's a ongoing destination, but you can't say that you ran a mile or you ran a marathon when you start at mile 8, right? That doesn't work. So you really have to start from the bottom and make sure that, whether it's in a business, whether it's in, whatever you're trying to pursue, you need to make sure that you're able to do everything, right? I can never ask someone to do something that I haven't done or aren't willing to do myself. And by creating that credibility, by shifting your philosophy, you're able to do that. And I think one big thing for me is I've just believed that I'm worth more than what most people do. I'm a firm believer that everyone's capable of achieving their goals and their dreams and their aspirations, whatever these may be, right? Some people want to be a billionaire. Some people just want to have a great family and be able to support them, right? Everyone has different goals and dreams. But for me, what separated me is I've actually believed that I'm actually capable of achieving those dreams. And when you believe that you're capable and you believe that you're worthy, you're going to do certain actions that maybe the person next to you who doesn't believe that they're worth it aren't willing to do. And if you do that consistently, intentionally over time, it's basically impossible not to achieve what you want. It's the law of cause and effect, right? For every cause, there's going to be an equal effect. If you consistently attack what you want to do, just like yourself in this podcast and the success that you're having, eventually the universe is going to bend to your will. They're like, well, he's not going to quit. He's just going to keep going. Might as well just let him have it.
Right. It's I just tweeted this the other day where passion is how you interpret your journey, but success is how others interpret your journey. So you have to fuel your fire with passion at first, and then when over time with staying consistent with whatever you're doing, people then interpret that passion into success.
For sure.
It's literally all just a matter of time. You just have to go in there and grind. And yes, sometimes it does suck. Sometimes you find it's actually pretty easy depending on the amount of skills you've culminated over time. That's something that I've kind of found with one of my favorite philosophers, or I guess speakers, is Scott Adams. Are you familiar with him?
I'm not, no.
He wrote Dilbert. He's wrote a bunch of popular books. His most popular one was how to continuously fail at everything and still win big. And basically the idea behind that is skill stacking. It's like no matter what you're doing, you need to derive and pull different skills and experiences out of no matter what you do. And then over time, that snowballs into something so specific and unique to you that nobody else can replicate it. And then therefore society crowns you as one of a kind or unique or successful because nobody else has that sort of mindset or integrity that you possess.
Yeah, I think specialized knowledge is really important for people to understand, for sure. Specialized knowledge. There's a difference between, knowledge and specialized knowledge. Knowledge could be interpreted as going to college for 4 years for a business degree, not knowing why you're going to college, but going it because everyone else says you should go to college, and then you graduate with your business degree and you end up being a realtor. You end up doing something that has nothing to do with those 4 years versus maybe, obviously, you got value from the social aspect, but what if you were a realtor 4 years before that? Imagine the track record, the consistency, and the skills you would have developed. You'd be in a fifth-year realtor versus a one-year realtor and having a piece of paper. But specialized knowledge, I think, is important for people to realize. For me, I chose specialized knowledge over general knowledge because I know when you're a niche in a field. Like for me, my specialized knowledge is in recruiting, sales, building teams, leadership, public speaking, right? That arena. So I know that if I focus on that, where focus goes, energy flows. If I stay consistent enough to that, I'm eventually going to get good, right? You can't shoot free throws every single day for months on months straight and not get good at free throws. It's impossible. But yet most people are targeting all these different things because they haven't got clear on what they want. So they're making little deposits in 6 or 7 different buckets versus filling the one bucket that they're actually passionate about that could actually overfill and create that success for themselves.
So how do you find that passion now? Let's say we're a high schooler, we're 17, 18. This was including myself. I didn't know what I wanted to major in. So I always say the joke, I decided to major in myself. I majored in kinesiology because I didn't really know what to do. Is that even a path that's worthwhile today, going to college? If you don't know what your purpose is, how do you kind of unravel that discovery process?
So I think the system is designed for people to fail, to be honest. I think the system is designed for people to fail. If you think about just evolution and how we've evolved as human beings and how technology and all these different areas, medicine has evolved. If you look at the schooling system, it's been the same for hundreds of years. Nothing's changed. Our phones have evolved, technologies have evolved, all these different things have evolved, but yet our schooling's still the same. John C. Rockefeller, he's actually the OG, basically the dude who designed the school system. He has a quote. It's pretty funny. You can look it up. He says, "I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers." And this is the guy that designed the school system, right? So in my experience, the system's jacked up. With that being said, though, there's a lot of people that, can go through the system and make results based on their own personal discoveries and philosophy. So I don't think school's a waste of time. I would never come up here and say college is a scam or anything like that. I think school's a waste of time if the only reason you're going to college is because your mom, your friend, your fraternity brother is saying, hey, you got to go to college because if not, you're going to be a loser or failure. But on the flip side of that, right, don't not go to college and just go work at Radio Shack for 4 years and smoke a bunch of weed and not doing anything. So I think the social aspect's really important for college. Joining a fraternity really helped me level my social status up and helped me evolve some certain skills. Did I learn anything from the classroom? No. I didn't learn anything. I remember sitting in my entry-level business class and my professor was teaching me how to make a resume and, automatically I checked out. I was like, okay, this isn't for me. This isn't where I want to go. But I think it's important for people to just understand what they want out of life and why they want it. And it's really hard for people coming out of high school who have been conditioned to essentially be told what to do for the last 10, 12, 14 years of schooling and then get plopped into the real world and make a decision for what you want to do for the rest of your life. So I think it's all about just having that awareness, finding a mentor, find someone that has some type of results you want, whether it's like an uncle or a friend or someone that is living a fun, fulfilled life. There's people out there that have enough money, that are happy, that are healthy. I would recommend finding those people, asking them their advice, and doing a little bit of soul searching, figuring out, hey, a good question I used to ask myself, if money didn't matter, if I could have everything in the world and money didn't matter, what could I do? What would I do? And think about that for a second. And typically the answer to that question is probably a clue to what your passion is or what your purpose is, or at least the first step into unfolding that.
Yeah, I think sometimes in life we do get too focused on what actually purpose is, because that's something that's kind of just beaten into you since you enter kindergarten or elementary school. They're like, you have to find your purpose. We're predetermining your destiny now. And that sometimes brings crippling anxiety because you've kind of been force-fed for
decision.
that. Yeah. So I actually wrote like a little paper on how to discover your purpose. And I think the first way to do it is kind of figure out what your niche is. And in order to figure out what your niche is, you need to dive deep internally and discover what are like the different commonalities in your life. I'll use me for an example. I found out that a lot of the different commonalities was that I was always a part of a group that was bigger than me. I was always communicating with people, and I was always just irresistibly curious about everything. And so after deciding on these three things, and then I'd gone on and also tried to build multiple businesses, I was like, what can I do to feed these skills? Ultimately decided on the podcast. And now I feel like the podcast is my purpose because I discovered my niche. And now this is it's kind of translating and trickling outwards to other people. And now it's been being interpreted as success by them. And so it becomes a fulfilling journey.
That's a great point, man. Gary Vee talks about it, right? Self-awareness, right? Take audit of your life, right? What do I like? What don't like? And I think, what you just said is really valuable. The same for me. I had to take some analyzation over my life. What am I good at? Am I good at? And what do I like to do? And similar to you, when I was growing up in high school, I was never super popular. I was never super outgoing, but I always was usually the bridge between connecting people. I remember I used to have a couple different groups of friends I grew up with, friends from high school, friends, from BBYO, if you remember that, a little Jewish youth group. Yeah. Shout out to all you guys. But I was always the bridge. I was always the person where I would bring in this group of friends to this group of friends. And I would create friends. So from an early age, I always identified I was really good at bringing people together. I was really good at establishing a culture where people, at the time it was a culture of drinking and partying, but it was still a culture nonetheless. So I think it's figuring out what you're naturally good at, what you're gifted. We're all born with gifts and things that we like to do, because in today's world, man, you could literally go make $70,000 a year making reviews on Fruity Pebbles if you love Fruity Pebbles that much. Like, you could find something that you truly actually enjoy and that you like to do and figure out a way to monetize it and make money on it and use that as the stepping stone to learn some cool skill sets in monetization and business development and startups like you did, Jake, right? You've gone through some ventures, but it's gotten you to the point now where this time around you're prepared, you have all the resources, you have all the turmoil and experience figured out, and now it's just all about executing, and now you're seeing the success. So I think it's all about, rather than listening to the system, your parents, people are very easily influenced by the people around them, right? Because again, we're social beings. We don't like going away from the crowd. Anytime that we're doing something that's different than everyone else, we feel uncomfortable because we feel like we're going to get judged, and we care more about what other people think about us than sometimes what we think about us. So because of that, people respond and act accordingly. When the issue is, if you're always listening external, right? If you look at external, most people aren't doing that great, right? Most people are overweight. Most people are unhealthy. Most people don't have that much money in their bank account. So it's like, if that's the information, if that's the side of the coin we're listening to, the results are probably going to be a byproduct of that. So taking some inward time, right? Taking a little bit of self-reflection, self-auditing, I think could really set you up for at least the right track, because you can run fast in the wrong direction, which is what a lot of people do. So it's taking that time to recalibrate. What do I really want out of life? What's important to me? What's my values? What would be something that I could see myself doing for the next 20, 30, 40 years, and, taking action in that direction.
Yep. And being accountable for those different skills, but also knowing that whatever you do, whatever that journey or that path that you decide to run down, there is going to be multiple pivots. There's going to be obstacles in the road. There's going to be forks, and you have to be aware to adapt, because what we've learned with COVID is that life can dramatically change just like that.
Real quick.
In an instant. And now we're seeing this acceleration towards a lot of trends that were just kind of submerged with what the media was actually portraying to society to be, these social constructions. But now we see the adoption of remote working from home. We see telehealth, kind of the digitization of assets. I think financialization of different industries are happening as well. So if you have all these different skill sets and something dramatic like this changes, you're able to adapt and then use that leverage to build whatever is going to have the most substantial monetary gain. Like Naval says, we live in an age of infinite leverage, and it's only growing more. Even though infinity seems like a lot, like you start to learn that the more skills you possess and the more that you read, the less you actually know. So it's really a big world out there. It's vast. You know, nobody wants to yell into a void. That's kind of how I felt starting the podcast. But eventually that void begins to fill up, and then you begin to understand what different directions you need to take.
Couldn't agree more, man. Right? It's not about learning new information. A lot of times it's about unlearning. And it's interesting because I was in Hawaii a couple of years ago at like a retreat, and one of the questions we were going around was like, what's the biggest thing that you've learned through your solar journey, right? In this context, this direct sales journey. And for me, it was adaptability. Being able to adapt, being able to pivot, being able to, think, hey, this is how things are going to go for the next X amount of time, and realize on the drop of a dime that's not, and be able to effectively, pivot and execute. And, I think we live in a world of continuously evolution, right? And adapting, right? Whether it's technology, whether it's our jobs, right? The jobs we have today may not be there for the next 10 years, right? With robots and artificial intelligence and Elon Musk and all this crazy stuff going on, right? It's going to make a lot of careers, jobs obsolete. So if you're so fixed in what you believe that you can do and your skill set and your experience, there's going to be a rude awakening for you, especially as time continues to go on. So I think this concept of adaptability and almost being like a chameleon, of just adapting to your circumstances and doing what you need to not just survive, but thrive, is one of the most underrated things that people don't focus on. And the reason that they don't get good at it is because they don't put themselves in a situation to be vulnerable. If you're just safe in your 9-to-5 job and safe in your relationship and safe in, your life, you may not love it, may not excite you, you may dread waking up in the morning, but at least you're familiar with it. At least you know what it is. You're not practicing that skill set and that mindset of adaptability, because you're not putting yourself in a vulnerable situation. And the issue is, as me and you both know, Jake, when you don't stretch, you're never going to grow, right? You have to jump out of your comfort zone. So I think adaptability, being able to pivot, being able to say, hey, this is how our business model was going yesterday. It may not be the same tomorrow, but that's okay, because we believe in our ability to change and overcome and adapt and thrive. And the reason we believe in that is because we've done it before. But if you're not practicing that on a microcosm or on a macrocosm, when the time happens, because it will, in whatever facet of your life, you're not going to be prepared for it.
Right. Leaders thrive best when making quick decisions and running with it and being able to lead people. But
I love that. I heard a good quote yesterday. You brought that up. It said, successful people make fast decisions and take a while to change them, where unsuccessful people take long decisions and be fast to change them.
Yeah, you have to be able. That's what successful leaders do. They're aware that there are going to be millions of different forks in the road, no matter what it is. We are humans, and there's so much erratic behavior that stems from human nature. It's what I've learned from running a business and managing people. That's actually tougher than the business itself. And I'm sure you've learned this, having over 100 or 200 different employees.
Yep.
A family member dies, or they bring that fight from home into the workplace, or they make a mistake where you lose a lot of money. These kind of things you can't really plan for, but you have to stay on your toes and be aware and be sharp, because that inaction could become a snowballing effect to disaster.
This is why I love sales so much, man, is because you are allowed to practice those skill sets, right? All sales is the practice of effectively communicating with people. And regardless whether you're in the profession of sales like myself, or you just practice sales, because everything we do is a sale, right? If you're a mother and you want to convince that your kids should eat a lot of veggies, eat broccoli, don't eat sweets, right? You have to sell them on the fact that why broccoli is valuable for their life, right? You're not a salesperson by trade, but you are a salesperson, right? The reason I'm here right now is because you had to essentially sell me, right? You asked me, of course, you didn't have to actually sell me, but you had to create value around me spending my time to be here right now. So everything we do on a constant basis is selling, right? We're getting opinions out, right? We're getting people to do what we want, consciously or unconsciously. And it's an important skill set, because like you said, man, people are freaking crazy. They're irrational, they're emotional, right? They're hot one day, they're hot another, right? They change all the time. So being able to deal with that, right? cultivating that skill set to deal with other people, because we live on a planet with a lot of people, 8 billion, 7 billion. So we're going to have to get pretty good at dealing with this whole people thing, unless we go quarantine for the next 20 years or never have to deal with anyone again. Hopefully not, but we're going to have to get good at dealing with other people. So the reason that salespeople, people in my profession, you're able to get paid so much, doctors, lawyers' salary, is because they're perfecting the ability of dealing with people. So after they leave the sales industry, it doesn't matter if they go start their own business, a charity, a gym, a podcast, whatever, they're going to be so much more well prepared, because guess what? It's probably going to be dealing with people. So why not practice it now? Why not get those skill sets down now? So as you continue to evolve, you have those later on.
Yeah, sales is the underlying mechanism of our society, right? We live in a capitalist society. Depending on whatever your view is on that, that's a whole different debate. But sales is what drives innovation. We know that if you have some sort of incentivization mechanism attached to whatever you're building or doing, or whether you're communicating with people, and kind of have that game theory attached to it, then we will drive society forward.
100%, man. And yeah, I mean, it gets things going, like people, I look up to people like Elon Musk, right? People like Bezos, right? People, they're entrepreneurs, they're leaders, but they're salespeople, right? They're out there actually creating value for society. With all this, I don't follow politics personally. For me, right, no one externally can create my future. It doesn't matter who's in office, right? There's perks for both, but it doesn't matter who's in office. They're not going to pay my bills. They're not going to make sure my family's taken care of. So I don't watch the news. I don't consume myself with any type of...
You'll adapt to whatever situation.
I'll adapt to whatever, but I mean, a lot of people, and it's sad, a lot of people are so in victimhood and so much fear, because the first thing they do is they watch the news and how things are awful and this and that. And, they continue to live their life like that. But the issue is most people are dependent on these politicians to impact their life, right? Oh, I hope they change this policy, or I hope they do taxes or this or that. Right. And obviously there's an extent to that. If you get your building closed down in California, your restaurant, that's one thing. But for the majority of people, they're not really affected, and they're giving all these politicians power. But in reality, your politicians aren't leaders. They are elected officials, right? They're not leading anyone. We elected them. They should be serving us, right? The people that are actually going to change the world and actually make change are entrepreneurs. It's not the politician. It's the Elon Musk. It's the Jeff Bezos, right? It's the owner of Whole Foods, right? It's these people that are creating businesses that are adding value to society, giving jobs, providing legitimate opportunity, and that's what's going to push society forward.
Did you read Conscious Capitalism?
I'm halfway through.
I'm like halfway through
it's
right now too. Yeah, it's getting back to basically the whole premise of it is that before Citizens United was created, which is the bill that allowed money to dictate political decision making. Basically, you could pay off politicians. We need to go back to the capitalist model beforehand. Before that was that intervention, and entrepreneurship and business was driven by value creation rather than how much money you can make, and therefore pay off a politician and just keep driving this incentivization
for sure
mechanism. Oh, it's such a good book.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to realize that stuff. Like, I'm not, I don't classify myself as super book smart. I had a 2.4 GPA in high school, right? Cheated in algebra as much as I can. College was never for me, right? I was never had good formal education. But I realized very quickly that if I wanted to be successful, right? Success is defined by a lot of different things. In this context, success is having enough money where money isn't an issue anymore. If I wanted that goal, I was going to have to learn some new information, because the information that I was taught from my parents, my friends, my colleagues, my professors, again, they didn't have the results I wanted. So they were probably teaching me information that wasn't congruent to where I wanted to be. So for me to excel, and for me to take myself from some broke college student that didn't really have too much going to them to someone who is financial sustainable, I was going to have to learn certain information. So I started reading, right? I started listening to YouTube. I started listening to podcasts like this, and I started feeding myself information that was actually relevant to who I wanted to be and what I wanted to obtain. And, for those of you guys that are listening are like, money isn't the most important thing in the world, but it is right up there in oxygen, right? I have friends that, like, whenever I try and talk to them about any of this or try to give them advice, right, they don't even listen to it, right? It goes in one ear out the other, and it always baffles me, but because I'm like, how are you not interested in learning valuable information about something that has so much control over your life. Again, it's not the most important thing in the world. I know people that have a ton of money that are not happy. I know people with a ton of money that are super happy. But for me, I'm way happier having money than not having money, right? It's really hard to be happy if you have to struggle and you don't know how you're going to pay your bills and your parents are worried and all these things, right? So there's definitely issues and problems that it can solve, but it's just interesting to me how, there's such a value in this concept of earning income and creating freedom and, having professional control over your destiny. Yet there's so many people that seem not interested in it. They're more interested in the news or their Netflix show. And it baffles me sometimes, because you're going to get to 20, 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, and you're going to get stuck. And you're going to be working a job that you don't like, making money you don't like, living a lifestyle you don't like, and you're going to have a bunch of regret because you didn't take it seriously early when you had a little bit more flexibility in your life.
Oh, dude. When I was a young high school kid browsing the internet, I used to have a fascination with reading letters by elderly people who were reflecting on their life. And the number one thing that I saw that came up majority of the time was that they oftentimes reflected on the things that they didn't do in life rather than the things that they did. And that hit me home. And that's why I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to go out and do anything possible, expand my horizon, prime myself to take on new things in life. And it's become very, very rewarding. And that's kind of, you're talking about information. That was kind of the similar route that I went. I kind of follow politics now just because of the podcast, so I have to be aware of what's happening. But I get my information mostly from podcasts and from books is the primary two. And I'd say YouTube, because YouTube has some sort of, I guess, unbiased, depending on who it is. But you can now crowdsource this information and make a more accurate decision based off of what you need, rather than getting it from CNN, MSNBC, or Fox, which are more now like entertainment news than actual reporting journalistic news.
100%, man. I'm thankful I never watched the news growing up. I don't know, I didn't consciously realize that it was poison, but for some reason I was just never attracted to it. But it's so true. I mean, and that's why, to go back to our kind of like the system talk, that's why I think things are jacked up. And that's why I think that the blueprint is meant for people to fail. Because if you look at all the mainstream things, right, whether it's from food, right, the food that people say to eat, right, Kellogg's and all this sugary stuff that they feed kids, to the information, to the schooling system, right? If you look at all these mainstream things that are coming down from, the sources, the elites, right, whatever you want to call them, they're all there to cause you harm, right? Whether it's financial harm, whether it's actual harm to your health, whether it's there to put you on a different route than what you should be going. They're almost like misdirects in the road. And when you start realizing that, and it starts with, for me, it started in a business when I was like, wait, 97% of the information that I'm hearing from things around me are wrong. If that's not true, and if they're lying to me about that, what else are they lying to me about? And that's when I get more conscious about the food I'm eating and the information I'm listening to and the different programs that I'm listening to. And when you start getting woke, per se, about certain areas, and there's a lot of woke people that use that wokeness and they're still living a poor life, right? So don't use that as a crutch. But when you start getting aware that, hey, maybe what my parents told me or what my professor told me or my parents told me wasn't that accurate, you start to ask questions. When you start to ask questions, you start to get answers, right? And the better the questions, the better quality of answer. And then you end up realizing, man, let me figure out what I can do in life. And now you're in a state of empowerment, right? That's where it all starts. You need to be empowered. You need to be in a state of stand as source. Hey, the reason my life is great or the reason my life sucks is because of me. When you have that stance, now you can take ownership. Cool. That's okay, right? Let me swallow this pill. Let me hurt the ego a little bit, but now let me take action. Let me figure out what I can do, right? Let me figure out what direction. Cool. I've gone the wrong way on this hike for a long time. Let me be mindful of that. Hey, I've gone the long way, and let me turn around and start walking back in the other direction. Most people just continue walking down the wrong route, and it's unfortunate to see. And like you said, they get stuck. Just like in a video game, right? You make a strategic move and you get stuck, and then you're screwed. You have to turn the video game off and try and reset. That's what most people are doing. Unfortunately, there's not a reset box, right? Now you're just stuck, and it's unfortunate.
It is. It does come down to taking accountability. And I think we're blessed in a generation that we have this magnificent double-edged sword. And depending on your perspective of life, of how you view this blooming creator economy, right? The content creation. because we saw it with a lot of optimism. So we decided, hey, these people who are going out and creating these different news sources that aren't a propaganda machine, like there's a lot of useful information, right? I know you've used the term YouTube University pretty often in your speeches, because you realize that this information out there, it doesn't have to be preached through your teachers in a classroom where you're not paying attention for an hour and a half because you were partying the night before, or you just don't want to be in class at 7 a.m. Now we have the opportunity to learn in the comfort of our own home when we are most optimized, depending on whatever our preference is and how we take accountability for our own life. Because this creator economy is blooming. That's one of the reasons why I decided to jump on the podcast. I was such a critic of content creation for such a long time. I used to think it was such a big cop out. Like, look at these fucking guys on YouTube
selling programs,
doing all this different bullshit. But eventually I walked down that hike trek, and I realized this is not the mountain that I want to be on. So I had to backtrack pretty much everything that I had thought about content creation. And I started going back up this content creation. I was like, wow, this hike is much more beautiful. There's waterfalls. This mountain at the end is very rewarding. And because I took accountability, that I understood that my perceptions of content creation and this blooming economy were completely wrong. Now I'm able to find success in this interesting route of content creation.
Yeah, I give props to anyone pre-2000 who created successful empires, businesses, entrepreneurs, because they had it way harder than we do now back then, right? We live in the 21st century where literally I could go on my phone right now, type in how to become a millionaire, and have hundreds of videos on actual principles, statistics, some good, some not so good, on how to actually make $1 million or 7 figures, or how to be a drop shipper, how to trade Forex, how to invest in crypto, how to start my online brand, right? There's so much information out there, which is an awesome thing. It could be a negative thing, right? Because, complexity is the enemy of execution, right? There's so much information out there that people get overwhelmed, and then they end up not taking action, right? Information overload, analyst paralysis, right? There's a bunch of different quotes for it. But I mean, we have all the resources at our fingertips. That's what I did, right? 8 years ago, I realized, hey, I'm a college dude, right? My parents don't have much money. I don't have that much money. I'm destined for mediocrity. Let me change something. Let me start tuning into a different channel in my life. Let me start listening to different people. Let me start shifting my habits a little bit. And slowly but surely, right? 3 years, I made no money, but I was building that muscle. I was building those habits. And eventually one day, boom, it works for you. But I decided to make a choice. I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. I think most people don't take massive action for their life, and they don't, as you, Jake, right, take that U-turn on that hike of their life and go a different direction, is because they're not in enough pain. They're comfortable, right? They may not love their job. They may not love their lifestyle. They may not love what they're doing, but they don't hate it. It's okay. They'll tolerate it, right? And the issue with that is, until the pain of change outweighs the pain of staying the same, then nothing will change. Until that individual gets to a point where they're disgusted, they're not going to take massive action. It's like the story of the dog, where there's a dog sitting on some old guy, and the dog is like crying, and then the kid comes up to the old man, is like, "Hey, why's your dog crying?" And the old man said, "Oh, well, he's sitting on a pin." And the kid's like, "Well, why doesn't the dog move?" And the guy's like, "Oh, because it's not hurting long enough." Enough. A lot of us are sitting on this pin, and even though it's uncomfortable and it's not great and we're not happy to be there, it's not to the point where it's going to push us to take action to do something different. So it comes down to people making that decision, like, hey, I don't want to live this life anymore. I'm not happy in this relationship. I'm not happy with my body. I'm not happy with my financial situation. Let me actually do something. Let me take one step, because you don't need to see the whole staircase, right? Let me just take the first step, and then you build off that, and you cut off the critics, and you cut off the negativity, and you cut off all the people that said, hey, maybe you should just stick at that job even though you don't like it, right? And you listen to yourself, and you find out what you want, and you attack it. And if you do that day in and day out, it's impossible not to see some type of upward momentum. And the cool thing is, right, we have social media, we have technology, we can at least calibrate to the right direction. We can at least get the roadmap from all this resources out there and actually know where to go, but then it's up to us to take the action.
Right. And unlike, as you were saying, unlike pre-2000s, there was only a few different entry points in the economy where you could find success. The primary entry point was building a business and being some sort of sales business. But now you can entry point into social media where you build a brand, you offer some sort of education or utility to people. You can go do things like drop shipping. Everyone is now investing, and you realize that opportunity is there where it's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market, which actually creates generational wealth and the power of compounding, which is something that a lot of us begin to learn. Unfortunately, it's been later, but now people like on TikTok with I think they call it Fin TikTok. We have all these different investors, and people are learning how to invest at a younger age. It's beautiful because that was a gated institution for such a long time. But now a lot of these gates are being lowered. Unfortunately, politics is probably going to be the last thing with septuagenarians and octogenarians, which are 70 and 80-year-olds who are kind of housing that power. But now we have the opportunity to bring the power back to us through all these open grass fields of different industries. And the primary one is the creator economy. And now so many different things within the creator economy tend to bloom even faster. TikTok blew up to, was it 1 billion users in the matter of 4 years, which was like double the rate of what it took Instagram and Facebook to do. And something's probably going to come in and sever that in half, whether it's VR or whatever the case is. So we are in that age of infinite leverage, and now you don't have to monetize and then brand. You can brand and then monetize.
100%. And, talk about brand for a while. That's something that I've realized that I need to step my game up a little bit. My philosophy was like, let me actually go create a real business, right? Let me get some success offline, right? Like, let me actually make the money. To your point, there are a lot of people selling programs that shouldn't sell programs, right? One of my key philosophies that I teach people is like, don't listen to people that have the results you want. And because you can't teach something to someone that you haven't experienced yourself. And there are a lot of people taking advantage of the system and trying to take a shortcut and selling courses, selling programs. Make 6 figures in 60 days, or how I made 7 figures, from the comfort of my home, right? All these catchy landing pages. Yet you look at them, and the only way they've made money is selling you these courses, right?
You are the product.
You are the product, right? So the information. So I understand where people are coming from that aspect. So it's like, identify people that actually have created wealth or created happiness or created, fitness results for their life, and follow those people. And for branding, that's something that, again, I've had those kind of beliefs where it's like, oh, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to sell, that. But I've realized that, it's almost reach over achieve sometimes, right? It's almost, I could have, millions of dollars and all the value, and I can teach you how to go from, X to 0 to hero, right? But if I don't have the audience, if I don't have the influence virtually, right? If I don't have any credibility, it doesn't matter how rich I am or how successful the person is next to you, right? They're not going to be able to get to the level of impact of maybe that Logan Paul guy or the guy who, has a bunch of followers and that monetization. And that's just the game we're in. So for me personally, I definitely, this year, one of my goals is to step up my online marketing, try and get my online life to match my real life a little bit. So when I get to the point where I do want to start serving people and adding value and providing outlets and more information where people can actually tune in and hear my story and say, hey, some average ass dude from Vegas who has very little skills and didn't really have much going on for him, but him committing and reading and doing these things, X, Y, and Z, have helped him. So maybe it can help me. Like, I want to create that. So brand is something that I think everyone should be focusing on, your personal brand. Because in today's days, throw that resume out, Instagram, TikTok, right? Your online presence is really what's going to be your new resume in terms of, generating business, creating networks, and ultimately, getting some business success.
It's so freaking true. I just had a gentleman on here who runs an AI recruiting firm, and we literally talked for 20 minutes about how the traditional resume model is antiqued. It's irrelevant. Now when they are recruiting you, oftentimes the first thing they do is go to all of these different social media channels, and then they tap into your mind and your mentality and ask you a bunch of different questions. They don't really care about your experience because most of the jobs can be trained and you can be programmed for whatever these jobs are. Now, if you go in the different route and you're a creator, you don't have to fall in line with these different guidelines or requirements because you are more of a blue ocean where you can kind of turn and navigate into whatever direction. Granted, it's a lot harder because when you have a brand, it's much different than like a sales marketing, right? If your personal brand is much different than your business brand, because your business brand is dependent on your sales, but your personal brand is something that grows over time. There is no way to go from this guy who has 0 followers to 4 million followers. And even when you have that number, the majority of us know that those numbers are skewed with bots and different marketing programs beyond it. It's how people interpret you is the way of having an influential brand.
For sure. The pages with like 4,000 likes and 2 comments. It's like, suspect. No, you're absolutely right, man. And, you know, back to the resume aspect, you know, the whole resume thing, I agree with you. I don't really believe in that. One thing I do like, though, I heard this from a speaker named Jesse, I forget his last name, but he talks about screw a work resume, focus on your life resume, right? Like, what's your life resume? If you had to, you know, whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 80, whatever, right? If you had to write down some of the highlights, key points, right? Successes, things on your life, right? Like, what would that look like? Because that's what's attractive, right? Jobs, organizations, other than like a normal 9 to 5 where, you know, you don't really have any upward mobility. No one really cares about the traditional resume anymore, right? They care about who you are as a person, right? Who you are, what you're about, what value are you going to add to your organization? That's what it comes down to. It's value. You know, it's not about work experience. Obviously, some work experience helps that, but it's like, how can I make an impact in this organization, right? If you're a school teacher, you're not happy with the income that you're making, or, you know, with COVID going on, you're trying to pivot, like, why not create like specialized knowledge? And rather than, you know, focusing on, you know, or you're, you know, a tutor or something like with 3 or 4 kids, you know, every single week, why not do a Zoom with 20 kids in that session, right? And figure out a way to monetize your time. And, you know, I think it's so important that as young people, because, you know, that's most of my audience, I'm assuming it's most of yours, it's like, we need to figure this stuff out now, because the older you get, the harder it is to pivot to something that you believe in, right? Because then you get the kids, then you get the house, then you get the marriage, and then, you know, now you're not making any decisions that you want to, because now you're stuck and you have these responsibilities, right? I have a really good friend of mine, one of my best friends, it's unfortunate, just had a second baby, right? He's kind of in between jobs. He's about to go work for somewhere he doesn't really want to, but he's in a position where now he needs to. So he doesn't have the amount of flexibility, freedom, and creativity to maybe make a big risk to go try something that he may actually like, that'll ultimately give him, you know, what he's looking for, because it takes time to build a little bit of traction. So it's like, realize right now is the time to go try something new. It's the time to go fail, right? It's the time to go find something that you want to pursue, that you could see yourself doing. It doesn't need to be the end game, doesn't need to be the have all be all, but it'll give you the confidence, the skill set, the experience to use it as your first stepping stool and then build upon that. Most people just don't take that first step.
Yeah. I like what you said about that. I've actually had multiple people on this podcast who have done MLM, and granted, you also said that you didn't find much success in 3 years, but I've noticed that a lot of people who get into MLM and door-to-door sales and direct marketing, they take these skills and then they go on and build something substantial right afterwards. It's very unique. Literally, probably like 10 different people on here who've used that, you know, including Travis Chappell. I had on Liza Henley, who was did the same thing, and it just goes on and on. So it shows that the first thing that you dive into, whether you're an 18-year-old that's graduating high school or a 24-year-old who just graduated 6 years after college, you can do something and not have success in terms of the monetary value, but the skills and the experience that you learn, you have to be able to perceive that you are gaining something out of it, and it's not just a failure, and then you could go on and build something substantial for yourself.
Yeah, I say this a lot. I think direct sales is just a personal development program with a massive compensation plan attached. That's what I think it really is, because, you know, obviously you're out there, you're obviously obtaining customer acquisition and all these stuff, but what you're doing is you're developing yourself, right? You're developing your grit, your resilience, what you're really made of. You're developing your mindset. You're learning certain things that are going to serve you in the real world. If I could go back in time, Jake, 17 years old, right after high school, right? If college wasn't really for me, because it wasn't, what I probably would have done, versus other than probably joining some type of sales organization or network marketing or something like that, I probably would have go found a local successful business owner, right? And I would have probably asked him to work for free and be an apprentice and just be a fly on the wall and observe, right? I would have rathered take a year of not making any money, because I was living with my parents. I didn't really have any bills, and just learned, right? Learned how he operated, learned certain things, right? And I feel like for people that, again, are willing to want to sacrifice a little bit, it's like you need to get around people that know what they're doing in life. Like, you have to. And the more that you can be around them, of course, most millionaires aren't going to hire you on the spot other than to give them coffee every single day. But if that's what you have to do, if you just have to be an apprentice, but they'll actually willing to teach you 1-2 years of your life for the grand scheme of learning certain things that'll serve you, isn't that much time. And, you know, I tell people all the time, like, in my business, direct sales is just a platform. It's just a vehicle. It's not the end all be all. You know, I've had a lot more success than I thought I was coming in. I thought it was just going to be a stepping stone for me too. I thought I was going to learn some cool skills, make a little bit of money, get a network of like-minded individuals, and then figure out what I wanted to do for my life. And, you know, obviously it's turned into a career for me. But for a lot of these young kids, because we get 17-year-olds, even though legally they're not supposed to work for us, but we get 17-year-olds and we have, 65-year-olds, right? All in different phases of their life. I mean, we have an Uber driver. He used to be an Uber driver. He worked for corporate America, quit his job because he wanted more time with his family, took a massive pay cut, was doing Uber for the last year and a half. And then one of our guys ended up talking to him in a car, recruiting him. Now he's making a healthy 6-figure income. He has the time flexibility. He loves his life, right? So it's like, there's so many different success stories, but the thing is, you need to get into something like this. It doesn't have to be direct sales, doesn't mean network marketing, but something where the people that you're surrounded with are ambitious and they want more out of life, and there's stuff that you can learn, because once you use that platform, what it is, you're going from level 2 to level 4. Right. And then the next thing you go to, you're going to go from level 4 to level 6. And then whatever level it takes for you to achieve what you want, you'll eventually get there. But most people aren't putting in the work to level up, right? They're stuck in their job. So if I could give advice for anyone out there, it's like, find someone who you know is successful, right? Whether it's not just successful, right? Because there's a lot of bad people with money out there, but people that have the pillars, right? Who are, they're happy, right? They're fulfilled, right? You can gauge their energy, not the scumbags who rip people off and make money, right? There's people out there, but find someone who you would trade places with and like model them, like be around them, ask them what they do, ask them what they know, see if you can, join something that they're affiliated with, because, whether you make a bunch of money from it or not, like me, 3 years network marketing, no money, I learned what I needed to go to a new opportunity and dominate.
Yeah, and dominate is exactly what you did. When you have a lot of these younger kids, like you said, 17-year-old, and we talked about the outdated resume, is there any sort of entry barrier to doing solar for Sunder, or is it just your grit and your motivation and your tenacity is what's going to get you 6-figure income?
Yeah, so we always, sales experience is always nice if you have a little sales experience, but I mean, me joining it, I had no sales experience. A lot of the successful people that are in our organization, no sales experience. It's really just, there's two things we really look for. I think this is universal for any type of job to elevate, right, or successful opportunity. It's, are you coachable and are you willing to work? It's really it. Because most of the time, it's like we talked about, it's about unlearning the information that you may think of. Because there's some coachability is really important. And most people, you're like, hey, are you coachable? Yeah, I'm coachable. But, when you ask them to stop doing the thing that they really love the most in order to succeed, they won't, right? For me, when I was first getting into it, right, I got rid of my Xbox, right? I threw it out. I gave it away, right? I stopped watching Netflix. I canceled my Netflix subscription, right? A lot of my vices are the things that I needed to do, I had to get rid of, because I knew that if I would sacrifice there, I would level up, right? I watch Netflix now, I play Xbox now, but I had to sacrifice in that time period, right? I had to be willing to give up stuff in order to get to where I needed to be. So, you need to be coachable, right? Most people, the reason they don't succeed in our business is they don't have this desire for success. They may want it. Oh, you want to make 6 figures? You want to be a millionaire? Yeah, that sounds cool, right? You find someone on the street, right? 100 people out of 100 people say, yeah, I want to be successful, I want to be wealthy. There's a difference between wanting it and actually desiring it, right? Are you interested? Are you committed in it? And most people, they're just interested, right? They're not willing to commit. So we look for that desire first and foremost, right? That willingness to learn new information, and then, work ethic. I don't think work ethic's everything. There's a misconception out there. As long as you work hard, you'll be successful. It's not true, right? School teachers, construction workers, they work a lot harder than I do. It's not just about working hard. It's about working hard. That's a component, but it's also about working hard on yourself. It's about what we train people is like, okay, are you working hard on the field? Are you putting in the hours? Are you knocking the doors? Are you making the sales presentations? Are you practicing your pitch? That's what you're doing on the doors, but what are you doing off the doors? Are you reading sales books? Are you creating good habits? Do you have a nightly routine, a morning routine? Are you going to any type of seminars to level up your belief about you? Like, what are you doing? Because your income will seldomly out-earn your personal development. If you're stuck at some type of income cap, $70, $80, $100,000, the reason is because you're comfortable with that level of income. So the way to level that income up is to get uncomfortable and get yourself to believe you're worth 150, 200, 250 grand. And as you do that, you'll start operating differently, you'll show up differently, and then the money will usually follow the personal development.
right? Naval, infamous Naval. He always said that. Yeah, he always said that.
Isn't he sending people to like the moon or something like that?
Naval?
Yeah.
It's possible, honestly.
If we're talking about the same guy, he was like the first
Naval
dude.
Ravikant, Silicon Valley.
I think so.
It's like a business philosopher, founded AngelList.
Maybe. I think we're talking about the same one.
I hope so.
Yeah.
He always said that when he was 18, he charged, or he believed he was worth $1,000 an hour, and now his time's worth fucking 10x that. His time's worth $10,000 an hour because of how much money he's made. But he primed himself with that belief at a young age, from 18, and he didn't stray away from it. You have to make these different sacrifices, whether it's a sacrifice for going out on a reach and believing you're kind of out of that box or out of that limit, or something like canceling your Netflix account. I'm glad that you said that, because I canceled my Netflix account 5 months ago, and I told everyone to do the same thing. I realized that I kind of gravitated to Netflix whenever I was not doing anything. When I had this downtime, I also sold my Xbox and my couch right when I started the podcast. I was like, all right, I have to fully commit to this. I can't give any groundwork. I have to shoot myself out of a cannon and make sure that nobody could catch me, and also to make sure that I'm putting in as much possible effort as possible. And something that, that may be misconstrued is when you make all these sacrifices, people will then associate that, oh, since you sold everything, you're probably putting in 15, 16 hours a day. I'm actually probably putting in less time now. I'm not now, usually about after 4 to 6 hours of work, I'm like, all right, I'm done. I've hit my mental capacity and I'm comfortable where I'm at. Whereas you kind of get integrated into hustle culture where they're like, you have to work 16 hours a day, but you only have to work 16 hours a day because these people are working 2 8-hour jobs. That's something that they don't tell you. And it's like, you have to hustle and put in max amount of time because you're in this outdated structure. But once you can kind of plug yourself into this mindset and this mentality of this creator economy and self-betterment, that you don't need to put in even half the day to find yourself successful. Cue in Tim Ferriss with the 4-hour work week.
I agree 100%. For those that believe they need to work 16 hours a day to be successful, that'll be the reality, because they believe that. And they're only going to achieve ultimately what, they believe that they're able to achieve. So if it takes 16 hours for them, that's what it's going to take. But I know people that, it takes a while, right? Like you said, it takes a lot more fuel to get the rocket ship off the ground. And then once you're in orbit, right, it's coasting, right? So that launch period is really important to get that momentum going, and creating that momentum for you. But then once you're there, right, you can never stop doing what it got you there in the first place, right? Because that's when you hear people, making all this money, all this success, and then they lose it. Is because they stop doing what got them there in the first place. And then, they'll always go back down to what they really are worth to the marketplace at the end of the day. But yeah, it's just all about figuring out your flow. For me, I don't know how much I work because me, it's like a lifestyle personally, right? I'll take calls at 10 o'clock at night sometimes, and sometimes I'll be free from 1 to 6 o'clock and I can do whatever I want, right? So for me, it's more of a lifestyle, and everyone's a little bit different depending on your profession. But one thing that I believe is congruent with successful people is you need to be obsessed with it, right? It needs to be on your mind 24/7. Earl Nightingale, basically the OG of PD, he says that the strangest secret in life is that you become what you think about most of the time, right? Your thoughts, whatever you're consistently thinking about, will essentially become your reality. So what are you thinking about most of the time? For me, I'm thinking about growing the business. I'm thinking about my goals. I'm thinking about my future. I'm thinking about happiness. And it took me time to develop that, because at first it wasn't like that. At first I was thinking of what could go wrong, right? What's not working. I can't pay my bills. But I've cultivated that philosophy of positivity and abundance because I know that my inward thoughts will eventually become outward, things. And realizing that, it's like, what are you thinking of? It's about shifting your thoughts. And like I said, for those that believe that they need to work 16 hours to be successful, they will. For those that believe they can work 6 hours a day to be successful, at a point, they will get that as well. So I'm big on the mindset, which is cliche nowadays, but I'm big on the thinking and the philosophy and, the attitudes and the emotional guidance of your thoughts, because you could take 16 hours of work, but with the wrong headspace, you're not going to get any type of result. Yet you could take 3 hours of work with the right philosophy and get 16 hours work of result. I'm sure at your podcast, you experience that a lot. You can come in with the right headspace, maybe after a massage. Like I like getting massaged weekly because it puts me in the right headspace. because then when I go attack what I need to, I'm that much more efficient versus, going through the mud trying to do something and then it just never really works out that well for me.
Yeah, 100%. You have to manifest your reality. I'm a big person of speaking it into existence. And if you do hold yourself accountable, like we say, my kind of style is that if I want to do something, I'll tell 10 of my closest friends that I'm going to do it. And since
Put it out there.
Yeah, since I personally hold myself very well accountable, and being a man of your word is very intrinsic of a value to myself, then eventually I'm going to do it. Some people have different kind of styles of it, but you do have to manifest your reality. And I do want to talk a little bit more on something that you spoke on a little bit, was about vehicles, because you said that you've used this as your vehicle, and now I see you expanding this vehicle into a little bit of a diversification of now you have you're going into real estate and investing and some of these other ideas. When in your life did you, or I guess along this journey, did you realize that it was time to start diversifying into things that you had not just solely found your life and purpose over the last few years?
So I think a common mindset out there is, with successful people in the personal development era, it's like, oh, we need 8 streams of income, right? The average millionaire has 8 streams of income, 7 streams or whatever it is. So I'm going to do drop shipping. I'm going to do Forex. I got this crypto trader. I'm going to do a little bit of door to door, right? And they have these hands in all these different pots, right? And at the end of the day is, you can't catch more than one rabbit at once, right? I forget the quote. It's like, jack of all trades, master of none, right? You can't be good at all these things. I'm a believer that you can have anything you want out of life, but you can't have everything, right? You gotta just be specific with the things that you're going to invest your life into. So for me, direct sales solar has been that first vehicle. It's been that first stream in order to create other streams, right? I'm not trying to chase, I've been hit up with a lot of opportunities over the last 6 years, some good, not so good, but I've declined majority of them because I know that in order for me to get this business to the level that I need to be 100% in it. Doesn't mean I don't dabble in other things, but like from an actual vehicle, hey, this is what, I'm doing on a daily basis. That's what that is. But as you get that one stream sustainable, right? Sustainable as in you don't need to be there all the time for it to run. I'm blessed where I'm in a position where I am, I have leverage, right? I'd rather have 1% of 100 people's efforts than 100% of my own, which is leverage, because I know that there's only so much time in a day to get things done. So by me building systems and teams, I'm essentially buying time throughout the day, right? I'm able to get more done and more income because now I'm not just dependent on my own time. I'm dependent on a bunch of other people's, time and energy as well. So I'm to the point where now that stream is sustainable and making good money where, again, the end game is always freedom for me, right? It's doing what I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want. It's not to drive a dope whip, right? It's not to have cool clothes or cool car, take all these lavish vacations. It's to have enough money where I never have to worry about money again. So when I'm 30, 40, 50, I can do what I want. And the things that I'll be doing is for passion, is because I enjoy it, not because I have to do it to pay the bills. So for me, I know the only way to get there is I need to go from just making earned income, which is essentially trading my time and energy for money, to get to passive income, which is obviously real estate, as you know, crypto, portfolio. So for me, my biggest thing is using solar, using sales, right? Whatever your vehicle of choice is, as the vehicle and as the platform, and then taking those resources, whether it's people, whether it's income, whether it's knowledge, and then diversifying that into real estate, right? Real estate I really enjoy. If you look at most millionaires, most of them made their income, billionaires, from real estate, right? That's basically the common trend. Again, not the smartest person in the world, but if you do what people do, you say what they say, typically you'll get what they get. So real estate makes sense to me. I know now I need to make a certain amount of income per year to invest X amount of that to create X amount of passive income, making money while I sleep, right? No matter if I'm there or not, the tenants are going to pay the bills, unless it's COVID. But we got government stuff for that. And I know that once I hit a certain amount of monthly income, that will basically mean, hey, I could stop, not that I would, but I could lose my solar business tomorrow and I'd still be able to sustain somewhat of my lifestyle without having to work again. And for me, especially in sales, most people, right, they do sales, they make some money, they make more money, their lifestyle goes up, right? They make more money, they spend more money. It's unfortunate because at the end they leave and they have nothing to show for it. They have to go get another job. So for me, I know I have this unique chance. I'm grateful and I'm fortunate to have it where if I do this right, right? I believe this is a vehicle that I do it right for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I believe that it can set me up for the rest of my life where then I can focus on stuff that I actually enjoy. I love solar, but the stuff that I actually am passionate about versus just doing something to make money.
Yeah, that is a definite classification of a vehicle. You're not driving around a little what is that, a little shitty car, a Honda?
Yeah.
You're building a fucking rocket ship, right?
Yes.
You want this to be substantial and to shoot it up into the sky to then you can diversify outwards. It's a very smart decision. That's kind of the similar path that I did with working in the industry. I realized that this was working in the nightclub, it's a pretty large vehicle. It's similar to a rocket ship. You can make literally doctor money, or some of these servers even double what a doctor makes in a year. But you need to go out and protect your future. And so that's what I was doing with cryptocurrency for a while. And a lot of the people on this trip end up, unfortunately, having to go get another job because they were upgrading their lifestyle, right? For me, this is kind of funny and kind of embarrassing. I just bought new socks for the first time in like 4 years.
You're savage.
I had I had holes in a bunch of my socks and I was playing volleyball the other day.
Because we're Jewish.
Yeah. And they were like, man, dude, you need some new socks. And I was like, there's just this weird, I don't know if intimacy is the right word, but it reminded me of like my old life, and it reminded me of like the grind, and like that I hadn't upgraded my life yet because I knew that if I upgraded my life, it was going to change my mindset. And if I changed my mindset, like I just wasn't prepared for it. But it was the outside influencers that are just like that look down on it. I haven't bought new clothes actually in probably 5 or 6 years. I just wear whatever people give me. It's like, cause that's just not really important to me as fashion. I've seen as like kind of like a money funnel.
For sure, man. It's, you're buying shit to impress people you don't like, right? That's the quote out there. And I agree, man. I actually just did a training on this for my company this morning about just like financial literacy and how important it is. And again, it's a skill set that we're not taught in school, right? We're not taught about, creating a tax deductible life or, how to build credit in high school or anything like that. But it's so important. And it's unfortunate to see people, because right now are the times where we should be making the most amount of money, right? Your late 20s, early 30s, to set yourself up for hopefully your 40s, 50s, 60s where you don't have to work anymore. Average retirement age right now is, I think it's like 67 or 68, and the average lifespan of a human being is 72, right? So based on the system, again, retire at 68, live your golden days for 4 years and die, based on the statistics, right? On average. Not for me, could be for a lot of people on this call, not for me and my family. I don't accept that for my own life, but I think it's just really, really important to live below your means, especially when you're making money. Don't get me wrong, right? For those of you guys that know me on this call, you probably just bought a new car, like hypocrite, right? All this stuff. Don't get me wrong. I believe in rewarding yourself and making sure like I like nice things. Everyone likes nice things. But for me, it's like, go spend your money in assets and then have your assets buy your liability, right? Go spend that 60 grand you would make on a car, go put it in a duplex, and then have that $1,000 a monthly income go help pay for that car's payment, right? It's just shifting your philosophy a little bit of from such a consumer standpoint to more of a producer standpoint. I remember 2016, first time I ever made over $100,000. I thought back, when I was younger, like 22, I thought if I made $100,000 in a year, my life was set. I thought I could retire my parents, I could travel the world, life would be good. Quickly realized $100,000 is not a lot of money, right? Not a lot of money at all. In California, where I was living, is basically over the poverty line. But I remember I made over $100,000. I was stoked, right? Yet I had $3,000 in my bank account at the end of the year. I'm like, my rent's $2,200. I'm literally a month away from not having any money and can barely pay my bills and just made $100,000. So that really helped me shift my perspective. And for all you guys in sales and high performers out there, it's like, we all know this. It's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep, right? Thankfully, right, I've been able to compound a little bit and be smart, and I'm in a good financial spot. But that came from being disciplined, where I didn't splurge, even though I could technically afford it. Just because you could doesn't mean you should until your spot. Now my philosophy, and I got this from one of my mentors, is like, you shouldn't buy a new car, shouldn't finance a car unless you can buy it cash. You can buy it cash, go ahead and do it. But most people get overextended, and then COVID hits, and then something happens, and then now they're playing catch up, using their retirement, using their savings, and it's not a great situation for them.
It's an unfortunate economic model that we live in. Ever since we got off the gold standard, we live in an age of debt. So, and people over leverage that to maximum capacity. Eventually, that's why I'm such a Bitcoin guy, is that Bitcoin doesn't have debt. it's like if you have the asset, then you can afford whatever that is in front of you. And that's kind of the virtues that I've followed within my life, is that if I can't pay for it outright cash, or something like a house or something like that where I could put down, 30 or 40%, which sounds unheard of. But to me, that's not unheard of. That's just playing the right decision. And I've just seen time and time again of people who put down 3% on a house or 3% on a car, and then in COVID, I know a bunch of people who've begun selling off assets because they were over leveraged. The society exposed them, or I guess they were exposed to what society actually is. And so throughout this entire conversation, it comes down to having the ability, or I guess having the awareness to go out and learn things on your own. Don't be stigmatized by the media, because a lot of these different things that they're saying on the news are outright lies. And even though we all on the podcast, we tell people that it's an outright lie, they still get caught in the same trap over and over and over again. When I got sober, I unfollowed every single club, every rave, anything that had to do with partying, because I was like, okay, if I want to change my life, I can't be around these different things. And so,
around in person and virtually, I think that's
and virtually,
excellent.
yeah, because it crowds your mind. And so the same thing was with when the pandemic happened. I was like, dude, I'm not following the news. I'm not following any of these things. I'm going to go follow 10 to 20 different independent thinkers, and then I could kind of crowdsource my opinion and make that decision there. You can't let people think for you. You need to think for yourself.
100%. And to your point, man, I think that's a great point, right? Like, it's not just our in-person association, but it's also our virtual association, right? We're consuming, a lot of us are consuming trash all day, whether it's scrolling through Instagram, the news, our parents, right? Like, me personally, I love my parents, but I had to get, when I was living with them, it was toxic, right? Because I'd wake up and I'd hear the news unconsciously in my background, and like how this is bad and that, and that's my reality, right? Your input becomes your output at the end of the day. So to your point, man, like if you want to change your life, you have to change things in your life, right? If nothing changes, nothing changes. And I think, for people listening, that's the first step. It's like clear your environment out, right? Do some spring cleaning, or whatever you want to call it. And, make sure that the input that you're getting visually, sensory, right, just like emotionally, right, is stuff that's going to be conducive to what you want. One thing I like to do, I call it dream building. Goes back to the manifestation part where, you're basically putting yourself in situations, you're getting close to your dreams, right? So the i8, I just got a BMW i8, putting it on Turo. It's more of kind of just like something to kind of like test the business model out. Plus, it's a cool car.
It's a vehicle that's literally a vehicle.
Exactly. But I've had that on my vision board for like 4 or 5 years. I remember in 2016, I actually went to go test drive one, and I wanted to go do it. This was back when I didn't have that much money, but I thought I had money, so I actually tried to go get one, and then they declined me because I didn't have, my finances and credit weren't that good. But it's just like you wanna put yourself close to your goals, right? Like if you're not associated with your goals. Have vision boards, go test drive the car you want, go live in the apartment that you want, right? Go stay by the hotels that you wish that you can stay in consistently, because by you doing that, you're going to increase your environment. You're going to increase the value around you. Ed Milet, he's one of my virtual mentors, but he's worth like $500 million now, private jet, whole 9 yards, but he lives in Laguna Beach, is 1 out of 3 of his houses, but he used to walk the beach for like the last 30 years and stare up at that same exact house and said, I'm going to buy that one day. I'm going to buy that one day. I'm going to buy that one day. Now he bought it, right? So it's like, there's not magic to it, but there's something to say about being focused. Again, where energy goes, focus flows, focus, energy flows, whatever. There's something to say about getting familiar with your dreams and your goals and the things you want out of life, because the more familiar you are with it, the more the universe will be like, oh, let's just give it to him, right? So I think that's a big one. I think cleansing your environment, physically and mentally, right? The things that you're consuming on a daily basis, and putting yourself closer to the life you want, the dreams, the goals, I think is really important.
Yeah, and right now is literally the best time to do it. The entire world is at a standstill. Everyone's at home focused on maybe the right things, or maybe they're focused on the wrong things and despair. But right now you have time to look around, going back to the very beginning, look internally and figure out what your niche is. What are the best things that you can apply to the outer world that will build value for not only yourself, but for society as well. And then they can deem you valuable, and you can start creating these different vehicles for the life that you want to live.
100%.
Before we get out of here, I don't know if I actually asked you this question the first time, but I always ask one outgoing question because it's been literally so long I can't even remember. But the question is, what does Las Vegas mean to you?
It's a good question, man. So Las Vegas is my home, thin to thin. So I was born technically in Brooklyn, New York, but I moved here when I was 2. So raised out here. And to be honest, I didn't really appreciate Vegas as much until I was forced to move. So back in 2015, that's when I first got into solar. I was 4 months into solar, and the market crashed literally overnight. Basically, Warren Buffett owns the utility Nevada Power, and we were doing too well, and he just cut it out overnight. So thousands of people lost their job, blah, 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 blah. I ended up having to move, went on a 2-year, basically, mission per se, right? I lived in Colorado, San Diego, San Jose. And I remember being in San Jose, really focused, right? Doing good in terms of my business, but like just literally willing to give anything that I could for Vegas to reopen again. Like I thought it was like a dream. I'd have dreams of it. And cause we weren't sure it would ever open. It wasn't looking good in terms of, oh, that's just it. Vegas is never going to open. And, I used to like dream of it. And ever since that point, thankfully it reopened and all that stuff. It's like, I appreciate Vegas so much. Like it's just home to me. It's a special place. Obviously I'm from here, but you tend to take things for granted when you're familiar with them, right? A lot of familiarity. The more you see something, whether it's a girlfriend, a car, a friend, a mother, right? The more you see them, the more you take it for granted until, they're gone or, you're not with them anymore. And that was my experience in Vegas. And ever since then, it's just my level of appreciation and gratitude to actually live here and be able to work here and to be around my family, be around my friends, have things open 24/7 because it's nowhere else, right? Have bathrooms in the freaking gas stations, right? Those little things, they make a really big difference. So to me, Vegas is home. I think it's an amazing place. I'm proud of what it's becoming. It's not just, a place where people can, let go of their sins and act the fool, right? It's actually starting to become like a place that people are actually value and the local presence is there. And I mean, we'll continue to get people from Southern California and other people. And I'm just really excited to see how the city and the culture, and everything expands in the future.
Yeah, by the end of this decade, Vegas is going to be one of the best places to live in the world if it isn't already.
I agree.
Where do I send all of the viewers or listeners to learn more about you and Sunder?
Yeah, man. So you can go to joinsunderenergy.com, joinsunderenergy.com for those that want to find a little bit more information out about the company, about the solar industry just in general. For those that want to contact me, still haven't made a TikTok. I probably should, but you can find me at Stephen Cohen on Instagram, at Stephen Cohen with a V. And Facebook is just Stephen Cohen. Would love to connect with all y'all. Always looking to meet other like-minded individual young people.
If you guys made it this far and just are completely taken away by Stephen's ability to communicate and to leverage the different things in life to find success, highly recommend following him. He gives out tons of nuggets of information, as he likes to say. So go out, follow him, get involved in Sunder. It's a merging, big, blooming industry, not just solar itself, but electric vehicles and the renewable energy and all those things become intertwined in the future. So it's a good place to be.
Can't stop a solution, baby. Let's go.
Boom. Thank you, Stephen, for coming on.
Thank you for having me, man.
Like I said, one of my favorite people to talk to. Without a doubt, we'll be doing this again sometime in the future, and I will definitely see you more.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks. Thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you next time.